All right, how's everybody doing? Good. So, some real exciting stuff here we're about to go over. I will be brutally honest with you guys. I am no parliamentarian, but I am an individual that's very grassroots oriented. I'm Luke Malice. I'm the Great Lakes Field Manager for Turning Point Action. I am from Michigan, and I encompass Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. Obviously, with everything that we do as an organization, very grassroots oriented. And with that, Mount Vernon project, it's something that we've worked on is getting, individuals in party leadership, sworn in by their county GOPs and then all the way up to the state GOP and then the RNC level. And with the grassroots aspect, there's structure to these meetings. And sometimes individuals, especially if they're grassroots and they're just gung-ho and want to get involved, they don't understand the processes, and that can really throw a big wrench into some things. And people are well intended, but at the end of the day, they need to know proper structure and how meetings are to run, because Robert's rules is very very streamlined. Every organization uses it, but when you don't, it can cause a lot of array. So with that, I'm going to introduce Cooper.
Hey guys, my name's Cooper Whitmire. I'm the senior field representative for Turning Point Action. And just to kind of reiterate what Luke said, here at Turning Point Action, we hold Robert's Rules trainings in our battleground states because we just see how instrumental it is in helping take over the GOP and really be a part of the party. One thing that back home in Georgia that we've really noticed is, there's really two different kinds of people, those who know the rules and those who don't. And when it comes time for these county conventions and these district conventions and these state GOP conventions, a lot of our more establishment folks and people who have been involved for a long time, they're very well versed in Robert's Rules. They know how all this stuff works. And that's why historically they've controlled a lot of these conventions and stuff. But now that we're getting more of the grassroots involved and a lot of people who started getting involved when President Trump was elected, so 2016, people who have been getting involved since 2020, it's important as an organization and those involved in your county or district GOP that we teach the grassroots how this stuff works so they can actually have a voice and be able not only to take part but be able to take over their county or their local GOP.
Yeah. So we're here to just kind of give you like a brief overview of, Robert's Rules, what it is exactly, and then be able to offer and extend to you guys an olive branch that you guys can actually sign up on our website on the Get Involved, and you can actually host, a Robert's Rules training, and that we can actually help you out with, and we can bring that into your county GOP, and we can bring that into, maybe your Patriot group, whatever it might be. We can come in and we can do those trainings with you guys. So just as an overview, basically, Robert's Rules, the purpose of it, in short, is to keep a meeting on track, punctual, and done properly. So that's kind of the point of Robert's Rules. And then why do we need it is because most meetings have a tendency to get off topic and derail from actual meeting, and that causes chaos and stress for everybody involved. So that's kind of the point behind Robert's Rules.
And just kind of to reiterate what Luke is saying, and to keep these meetings on topic to make sure that they don't derail. Oftentimes, I've been a part of several conventions where, like I said, a lot of the folks, some of the grassroots folks, get in there. They don't properly carry out the meeting and effectively use Robert's Rules. And then what happens is people from the state party have to go back and redo that convention because the rules weren't properly followed. So that's just why we're trying to educate people on how to properly know these rules so we can do it correctly the first time.
Yeah. So, and then with that too, I will make a recommendation. This isn't a part of our presentation, but it's not in our slideshow. But we have, because I was trying to click this. Do you know why this isn't? Oh, all right, thank you. Can you go to the next one? Next one. All right, perfect. Before I get into this, it's going to be very important as well. When it comes to parliamentarian, make sure that you guys find an individual that is, competent and that actually has done this stuff before. So say you're like a grassroots GOP and you take over the entire executive committee, right? You sweep the whole thing, you kicked out all the rhinos, great, everyone's excited. But now where are you at? Now where are you at when, push comes to shove and you need to be able to operate a meeting? Well, maybe go and find somebody from a different county GOP that actually has been doing this stuff for a while and actually understands Robert's Rules. Maybe they're a chair, what have you. Bring them in as a parliamentarian. That's very important. Somebody that's qualified to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what our organization's doing in several of our battleground states. We're bringing in well-versed, trained parliamentarians who have a good relationship with our organization, and we're going to these target counties and these target areas where we want our delegates to have an influence, in these states in the upcoming RNC convention, and to make sure that they're well-versed in Robert's rules. That's why we're bringing in these top-notch parliamentarians who have been doing this, but also have a good relationship with our organization and a good relationship with the grassroots.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go to this slide, you're looking at, we're just going to go over some basic Robert's Rules stuff. So pretty much what you got bylaws and you got the rules of order. So what's the difference? Bylaws, they're the rules customized at the local level that deal directly with the organization itself, so your county GOP or, Patriot Group. Rules of order, the guidelines to ensure meetings stay organized and structured. So bylaws and rules. The bylaws of your organization will always take precedence over the rules of order because those are made specifically for your group or organization. Go ahead, the next one.
Yeah, and so the next point's talking about bylaws cover important issues such as voting by proxy, executive boards, non-member influence, payments used as members in meetings. So, this is like, if you're a member of your county Republican Party, just the bylaws, which is voted on by the executive committee, typically passed at county convention. And, for example, in my county party back home in Georgia right now, we just voted to raise our membership dues. So we had to have an executive board meeting, make an amendment to the bylaws. So, it can be small changes, large changes, but that's pretty much what that's talking about.
Perfect. You want to hit the next slide? Perfect. So just a little bit of a flow for you guys to be able to see, like the Robert's Rules of Order, how a meeting is conducted. So pretty much you'd start out with, you can see there at the top, the presiding officer script. So start the meeting with an agenda and then follow it in order. You're going to go next. Obviously, you've always heard the old classic boom, boom, boom on the desk. And then you got the call to order. And then you got, approval or correction of minutes. And then you got step number 4, reports of officers. So you got president's report, treasurer's report, for example, handle questions. Then you transition into reports of standing committees. So, you got standards and you got the elections and finance. Then you go to the next one, 6, reports of special committees. I know, this stuff is really, really fun, right? Old business, so you go through all that. And then you got new business, and then announcements, so you can allow any individuals maybe that were, not on the agenda to be able to go ahead and have announcements and be able to kind of bring up some important stuff that's going on. And then you got the adjournment. So that's kind of just the, the flow chart of what a proper Robert's Rules, meeting looks like.
Yeah, so this next slide's talking about motions, so I'm just going to run through these bullet points real quick. So this is talking about a main motion, which is a call to action on a certain business item. Subsidiary motions, which is motions that are put forth so that the pending main motion may be executed. Privileged motions, which are motions that are used to help align the formal business of the meeting with here and now realities that may be affecting the group, and incidental motion, which is motions that deal with how the meeting will be conducted and according to the rule of order. And these are really just the different ones like in a meeting. So like I said, whether it's a county party meeting, a district meeting, these are just the optional motions, I guess, to go through.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and we can go into the examples of a main motion. So if you want to go to the next slide, if it's on there.
And Luke, I don't mean to interrupt, but if any of you guys have a question throughout this, feel free to go ahead and ask us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be really important too, just if you want to take pictures of this stuff, that's going to be really important and key as well. But you were going to ask a question. Yeah. Yes, we can get that over to you, and I was going to mention at the end of this as well, what we have available to you guys. We have like Robert's Rules, like quick 101 guides that we can go ahead and we can shoot out to you guys. This room's not like overly filled, so we could definitely get some stuff out to you guys. If you guys want to come up and we can get some signups, and we can definitely get stuff out to you.
And we also have a Rumble channel. It's Turning Point Action, and typically what we do after the conferences is we'll upload this video to it, and it'll like the screen will be on the PowerPoint slide, so you can go back and actually watch this.
Yeah, because this is like, the meat and gravy of it all. You guys are going to want to be able to have this stuff.
And it's super important stuff that you could go back and actually show this presentation to your county party. So, let's say your county Republican Party isn't currently well-versed in Robert's Rules. You could be that person today that from this slideshow, you could go back and present this to your county party, and that's what our hopes are that a lot of you do that.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as the motions, what part of the meeting do they take place in? And those are very important. The motions are super important, right? You'd say the most important part.
Right, yes. And I mean, so right here, I mean, Luke, like for that main motion, you know, which is call to action on a certain business item, that would just be like bringing up certain items of business that maybe need to be amended to the agenda or things that need to be addressed, whether that be old business or new business. So that's what the main motion is. And then each one of them is different, and that's what those definitions are right there.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So in the beginning of a meeting, a lot of times there'll be like an open forum. You gotta go through that, and what happened with me during open forum was if you're presenting your 2 minute piece, which
Right.
is really hard to do, someone interrupts you in the crowd, and they take up 30 minutes, 30 seconds, or 40 seconds of your 2 minutes. What I do is I say, I just got another 40 seconds. And the supervisors don't really know what to do with that. They typically give me 40 seconds. What do you do when someone's interrupting you?
Right. And a lot of this goes back to who the convention chair is. So, you know, if it's a state convention or a district or county convention, a lot of that is decided by whoever the convention chair is. So that's why it's important at a lot of these conventions who you put into that position. You know, like, for example, I'm very involved in the Georgia Republican Party, and back at our state convention, it's always a big decision, who are we going to put in for our chair for the state convention, because they kind of run that stuff different depending on who it is.
Right. Yeah, competency is definitely very, very important. So, you had a question?
Actually, there's a rule on that. You're not allowed to be interrupted when you have the floor, right? If you don't agree to it, the chair should immediately rule that person to be quiet. But if you do agree to the question, that time is taken from you. So you don't get that 40 seconds back if you agree to the question.
So you should protest it.
You just say,
I've been given my 40 seconds every time I've done it, but they're looking at me like,
as long as you don't
should I do
agree to
this
take
or
that
not?
question, the time is yours.
Because people are getting really good at talking over people.
And like these gentlemen said, the chair needs to be on top of that.
Yeah, and a lot of the times, that's why at these conventions, like I know at our ones back home, we have a main microphone at the front, and the only person who can speak is whoever's standing in front of the microphone at that time. And we do that just to avoid interruptions, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah, that's definitely great. So, wanted to go.
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry. Nope, you're good.
My name's Brian. I'm from the Republic of California. Part of a Patriots group there.
Yeah.
And our chair is the problem.
Okay. Yeah, that's tough.
When you, in our Patriots group, we have some embezzlement going on, and they're taking money.
Okay.
And I'm on the actual executive board. But anytime I bring a motion, he just slams his gavel down, and he says out of order. And if you keep talking, he just ejects you out of the meeting.
Yeah.
Is there any type of rule or any type of procedure?
I guess my question too is, so your guys' organization, so you guys elect, so you're a Patriot group, like you're electing these individuals as what, like, how often?
Once a year.
Once a year? Okay, how long have they been the chair?
6 months.
6 months.
American Legion in California.
Okay.
Oh, an American Legion.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's,
It's going sideways. We're trying to fix it, but we have a dictator at helm.
right, yeah, that's one of those very difficult things.
Decision of the chair.
So-
That's what you come back with. You rule me out of order, and you know he's wrong. I appeal the decision of the chair. That means the body now has the vote, not the chair.
Oh, there we go. See, that's why we love our grassroots, because
Yes.
everybody here has probably went through a little bit of something before and had something to offer. So, yeah. Next slide, if you don't mind. All right, so we got more examples. So examples of subsidiary motions. Subsidiary motions are the motions that are put forth so that the pending main motion may be executed. Motion to amend. Moving to alter the main motion should require a second and used to change or strike words or substitute proposals/sections. And then you got motion to lay on the table, used to bring the group's attention immediately to a much more important matter than the current motion being discussed. And then you got a motion to limit debate, a way to force a vote after a certain amount of time has passed. So, is that an example? If you want to go to the next one, unless there's questions. Yes?
Can you tell us what the vote requirements are for each of those? Because sometimes it's 2/3 and sometimes it's majority.
And that's going to vary on county.
That's going to vary on county and the size of the actual state committee and stuff. So, to my knowledge,
It's always 2/3 when it's something, you're addressing something that's already
Right.
Then scaling down from there, you gotta look at your bylaw.
Right.
So adjourn, simple majority, right? Orders of the day, one person. If it's on the agenda and even one person says, I call for the order of the day, that's it. You have to go. Doesn't even take a vote. To limit debate takes a 2/3 vote. So if there is a list in Robert's Rules of Order that you can look at, that'll break it out for you.
Perfect.
Yeah, guys, so just to hit on this next one, examples of privileged motions, I'm going to read through these points right here. So the definition of privileged motions is motions that are used to help align the formal business of the meeting with here and now realities that may be affecting the group. And just to go through the rest of these points, under motion to adjourn, used to motion to cut a meeting short or dissolve the assembly, motion to fix the adjournment time, special meetings to discuss pending business before the next regular meeting commences, guaranteed special meeting, and motion to call for the orders of the day, used to get the group back on track with whatever agenda was approved.
Perfect.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a senior at high school, and I've been talking on at our school board meetings on behalf of conservative ideas. And there have been people from the other side whose motions, like of personal privilege, have been taken, but they always decline mine. The board does. What can I do? Is there a rule? Like, is there a Robert's rule that allows them to have to accept all personal privilege, especially if it's a motion to call for the orders of the day?
Right.
Right, yeah. So in regards to that, like like I said, I'm not like super well versed in Robert's Rules of Order. I wanted to go through this, but I mean, I would say go to the Turning Point Action booth. We do have all that information for you, and parliamentarians that you can lean in on with Turning Point Action. Yes.
Joe Nigley is a parliamentarian. He could be a
He's the parliamentarian for MCRC, which is
Oh,
County.
great.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go.
Glad to have you today, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
I don't want to torpedo your presentation.
No, hey, that's why. Like I said, we love our grassroots. That's what it's all about. So if you want to be able to get involved and make some answers, that would be great. Yes, perfect. Yep, free game to do that. Then. So do you have an answer for her?
Okay, so give me a minute to answer this question because this is an important principle. All these things that you guys are talking about are absolutely true, but there's one really, really, really important thing that supersedes everything else. Roberts makes the majority the ultimate deciding decision, right? So if the chair does something tyrannical, as they often do, right, appeal the decision of the chair. When you do that, it takes the decision out of the chair's hands and vests it in the assembly for a vote. So if the chair says your point is out of order, you say, I appeal the decision of the chair. At that point, the chair says, it's been appealed, now we all vote. All in favor of supporting the decision of the chair, say aye. All opposed, say no. So in other words,
The ones who say that, or the body are the ones who say aye?
yeah, the membership.
Okay.
The membership rules. It's very lowercase d democratic in Robert's Rules of Order.
Right.
It gives the assembly the power. No single individual, not even the chair, can make decisions. Only the majority can. If the majority consents with what the chair is doing, fine, but they can always appeal, and that brings it back to the assembly. That's the key to everything overriding the Robert's Rules.
Right, 100%. Yep.
So the chair, so once you appeal the decision of the chair, if the chair won't call a vote, you call it yourself.
So, yes, actually, yes.
Because he will not call a vote.
Yes, if you do a point of order and they ignore it, okay? You do it again, that's right. Timothy is in my group. Timothy knows.
Okay, so
Hang on a second. You do a point of order once, if they ignore you, do it again. If they ignore you, you do it a third time. If they ignore you the third time, you have the right to call the vote from where you are standing. If it's a small meeting, it's easy to do. If it's a big meeting, that's why I bring a bullhorn. And also the appeal. If you appeal and it gets seconded and they ignore it, the second time and the third time, after the third time, you have the right to call the vote. Now, there's nothing in Robert's Rules that gives you police power. You can't force them, right?
Right.
But all you can do is videotape, audio tape, and then use public humiliation afterwards to get them to concede or to get them not voted out.
So can you explain a point of order? What's the difference between a point of order and
Appeal?
appeal? Yeah.
So a point of order is if you see a rule being broken, okay, somebody's rights are being violated or something point of order, Mr. Chairman. He needs to be recognized, or I need to be recognized. So a point of order, you can't debate, you just point out the rule that they're violating, right? And then the chair rules. Your point of order is well taken. Ideally, they'd say that, and then they fix the problem. Or they will say, your point is not well taken, and go on and do whatever they were doing. At which point you appeal. And then when you appeal, right, then the assembly gets to vote on whether they agree with you or whether they agree with the chair. It takes practice to do that, and it takes some nerve, but with time, it'll come.
All right. I think we got another question up here. We want to bring the microphone up. Yeah, there you go.
If it's working, and said, they just ignore you, they don't pay attention. So let's say the young lady does the appeal and said, I appeal the motion, and who is the person who's voting on it then? Is it the people in the audience consider? So if she's at a school board meeting, so is it just the people in the school board meeting who's making it, or the people at the front?
Yeah, if it's a school board meeting, only the school board members vote.
Okay, okay.
Guests have absolutely no rights whatsoever, unfortunately.
Point of order is a very important piece, and one question that I always get, if I call point of order from the podium, they say, you can't call point of order, it's only people on the board who can call point of order. So can you explain that for just a second? Because I think it's very important for folks to know, you end up having the power and you flip that whole dynamic.
Are you talking about school board meetings, or?
Yeah, school board meetings or town council.
Okay, town council, school board, only the elected members have any rights at all in the meeting. I mean, they'll have a public comment section, where people can speak. But in reality, the public has no rights in a meeting like that.
Okay, so if they deny your ability to speak, or they halt your time and you say point of order, it's really just, it's kind of pointless at that point, or?
If they have rules that govern their public comment period, you can appeal to those rules.
Right, okay.
But generally speaking, those rules are very, very, much in favor of the town council members to shut down anybody they don't
Thank
like,
you.
generally speaking.
Just further on that, because it may leave some room for wiggle. It's the elected people that get to decide. So like we're in the Republican Party of Maricopa County, we are all elected, so we get to decide. When you're dealing with a school board, it's only the people on the board, because you're the public, you're not members. They are members. So members are always the one that decide. So if you're the public attending one of their meetings, you don't get to decide. That's thank you.
All right. Cool. Well, I'm going to finish on just this last slide, and then after that, we're going to go into open discussion. That's going to be great. We're going to love that. So let's go to the next slide. Wait, is this the next one? All right. Cooper, you want to read it really quick? Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, so just to run through this next slide, examples of incidental motions. So an incidental motion is motions that deal with how the meeting will be conducted according to the rule of order. And then point of order, I know we hear this a lot, is a motion used to establish accurate parliamentary procedure. Request for information, motion used to fill in the relevant blanks without a pending order of business. And motion to appeal, motion used when the presiding officer has made an outrageous ruling, ability to criticize the ruling. I know we like that one as well.
There we go. Yeah, we like that one. So before we go into bouncing around, doing some popcorn, I would like to just say to as a reminder, go to our Turning Point Action booth down in the sponsorship hall, because you go to there and you actually sign up and let them know ahead of time that you were up in the Roberts Rules 101 class. Like I said, we have the system and the network to be able to get you plugged in with the right individual, considering whatever your certain instance is, like in yours for your Patriot group. We can definitely get you connected. We just want to be here to let you know that we do have the tools and the resources available when it's needed. So just as a heads up.
Yeah, and our hope is that each and every one of you, if you're not already involved, that you'll get involved with your local county Republican Party on the local level. And then when you get in and you learn what Robert's rules, you can utilize it and really help yourself out and help your community out.
Yep, absolutely. So do we have any questions? I know that we got a couple other breakouts going on right now as well. We got Tyler Boyer, our COO, going on with one, and then we got, I think Charlie's doing his podcast too. He can sit in on, but anybody got anything? Yes.
When I was in my LD meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
someone didn't like the way, one of our electives didn't like the way, some voting was going not in his favor.
Yeah.
And he called division. Would I be allowed to call division on his division?
Yeah, I might as well just give him a microphone this time. He pass that around. Oh, you already have one. Perfect. See?
They left it with me. So.
It's perfect.
So when there is a vote called, it's usually a voice vote, and it's not obvious one way or the other, right? Anybody can call division. It only takes one person to call division. And what that means is those in favor stand, and you see the room, then they sit. Those opposed stand, and then they sit. That gives a much easier way to determine which side is in the majority. I'm not sure I understand your question, but any one person, if they shout out division, it must happen and nobody can stop it from happening.
Okay, I didn't realize that was the context of that. Okay, but yes, I mean, it was quite obvious who the yes and the no's were, but
Yeah.
you wanted addresses or names or whatever.
Yeah, if they call it wrong, just shout out division, and then by the rules, they must have a rising vote. Rising, sitting, rising, sitting. So. No.
Hey, guys.
No, only members.
Speak your question into the microphone because this is being recorded, so this stuff will be good to go back on and be able to, go back on that Rumble channel and be able to listen to. Just as a heads up.
Yes, sir, in the back.
If my question is, if you're either a chairman or maybe even a member, if every time you call a vote, somebody or even one person in particular constantly calls division, is there anything you can do about it, or do you have to just let it?
So if people repeatedly call division, if it's obviously not necessary, like if the vote is obvious one way or the other and somebody calls division, the term for that is dilatory. What they're doing is just wasting time. And if the chair decides that somebody is doing things to waste time, the chair actually has the right to ignore them. It's one of the exceptions. People need to have a right to be recognized, except when they're being dilatory. And when they're being dilatory, the chair is obligated to ignore that call for division.
Does the chairman have to call dilatory, or they just yell division? Okay, moving on.
Typically speaking, the chair would say, this is dilatory, and therefore I'm not going to allow it.
Okay.
Now, then the person who was ruled dilatory can appeal, right? They can appeal the decision of the chair, right? And then the chair can say the decision has been appealed from, and then call for the vote. Generally speaking, the person who's being dilatory will be voted down. One thing that I've learned in a lot of the contentious meetings we have here in the Arizona Republican Party is a contentious member will always respect the result of a vote of the assembly. If it's an argument between the chair and that member, they're going to yell and scream and curse and raise all kinds of contention. But if the chair is calm and calls for a vote of the assembly and the assembly votes him down, he'll be quiet. This is what I've experienced in the last few years.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Yes, sir.
On the note of wasting time, one thing I've seen in a few meetings is where people will be arguing their points or whatever, and 8 people get up and say, like, I didn't have time to read it because my dog got sick and it was tragic and da-da-da.
Yeah.
And then 8 people get up and said, but I definitely had time to read it, and it was you guys are being lazy. Is there something we can do to be like, okay, we've heard that point, please shut up?
Good question.
Okay, so this is a common problem. Sometimes things will be sprung on an assembly and they're not ready to decide, right? Anybody has the right to move to postpone. I move to postpone this to our next meeting, right? And then there's a vote, right? And so if the majority believes that not enough time was given to examine something, it's postponed to the next meeting. If people are being repetitive during debate, yeah, that was your question, wasn't it? There's no way officially to stop that because it's subjective, right? And what I do when I preside is at the beginning of the opening of debate for that particular question, I will say, folks, let's try not to be repetitive here. We have 5 minutes on each side. If everybody takes the full amount of time, we're going to be here for an hour and a half. So please just try to be respectful and don't repeat things that you've already said. And in my experience, the assemblies mostly have been amenable to that, and they've actually been very cooperative. If somebody's being dilatory, obviously dilatory, then it's the chair's duty to say, you're being dilatory, be quiet.
Awesome. Any more questions? Yes. Microphone really quick, so we can hear the question. Well, it's just so it's recorded.
Okay, if there was a report from one of the officers or standing committees in a meeting, and let's say I didn't understand I couldn't see it or I didn't understand it, and later on I got a chance to look at this. How do I bring this up in the next meeting? How's the most effective way to bring this up?
I would assume get on the agenda, but let me go ahead and bounce it back.
It's a hostile environment,
Oh,
let's
okay,
put it
well,
that way.
That's
Yeah.
difficult, yeah.
I missed the beginning part of your question. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
There's a treasurer's report, for instance, that was put up on the screen, and she said it was on the website. It wasn't on the website. It was in the call letter, but I didn't see that. So I couldn't really determine what that said at the time, and they were big donations that were not disclosed by individual. So I want to know how I can bring this up at the next meeting, just anything that was in the previous meeting that has gone into the record. Can I now question that under old business, or is it just off the table altogether because we didn't notice it at the time?
If it was a treasurer's report and you didn't get a chance to see it, it would seem to me, unless the treasurer is extremely uncooperative, to simply ask them to please, send it to you or show it to you again. If you do that and they refuse, I think that'd be unlikely. But if they refuse to let you see it again, then at the next meeting you would say, during new business, I move that the treasurer publish this treasurer's report to all of us, or I move that the treasurer display it on the screen, or something, whatever you want him to do.
I have a question about what's in the treasurer's report. In other words, there were donations listed that weren't disclosed.
So the
But,
content.
and I wasn't sure I couldn't see the numbers until afterwards. So I want to then bring up a motion that we will, have to disclose all donations over $50 or $100 or something. But that would be new business, old business, or how do I do this? Or can
So
I do it?
the way you would do that would be during the treasurer's report, the treasurer will give some things, and if there are some things missing, at that point, you can ask a question.
Yeah.
During the treasurer's report, ask a question of the treasurer. What about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? If the treasurer gives good answers, great. If they don't, it's going to be very obvious to the assembly, wait a minute, something is wrong here, right? And then somebody will make a motion to fix the problem. If it's related to that officer's report, you can actually act on it at that time.
Now, were you wondering, I think she
But
was
it's
mentioning
passed.
after the
It
fact.
was at the previous
How would she get
report.
on to the next meetings? Like, how would she approach the
If it's
group?
been rubber stamped, then can I bring this up again?
Absolutely, yeah. The best time to do it would be during new business,
Okay.
right? Unless the treasurer is making a report at that second meeting. During the treasurer's report at that next meeting, you can raise the issue at that point.
Okay.
Mr. Treasurer, last time you presented some things I think that were missing. Could you please correct that for us and let us know what's going on here? There's multiple opportunities, but during his report would be the best time, and new business would be another really good time to do it. And if I may add just one more thing, new business is where the members have the right to introduce new business to the assembly. If there's something that you think needs to be done, new business is the time to introduce that, and you have a right to do that. By Robert's Rules of Order, new business must be on the agenda for all of your meetings, right? In my experience, many tyrannical chairs will leave new business off the meeting because they don't want anything controversial to come up. That's wrong, and that needs to be fixed.
Joe, do you just raise your hand at that point when you want to bring something?
New business. During new business, the chair is obligated to ask, is there any new business? Even if it's not on the agenda, it doesn't have to be on the agenda. The items under new business. The new business topic needs to be on the agenda, but individual things under that, anybody can introduce during that time, and the chair is obligated to acknowledge you and let you make a motion. If they don't, it's point of order, appeal, etc.
Hi, I have a follow-up question on the school board meeting. So I live in Charleston County, South Carolina. Our school board is fairly liberal with a bunch of fake Republicans. So I go up to make points, and many of the liberals from the other side who are in the audience, because school board meetings is a small board with a lot of audience members from the public, they're allowed to make personal privilege comments and things like that. But the board, a lot of times throughout the execution of the entire meeting and the acknowledgement of personal comments and personal privilege motions, they do not follow the Robert's Rules of Order at all. Is it okay for a member of the public who's not a member of the board to make a motion to follow the Robert's Rules of Order if they're not being followed?
No, it really isn't.
Is there anything we can do about that?
The best thing to do in that situation is record everything that's happening that's tyrannical, that's not being done correctly, and then campaign against them in the next election.
Yep.
I can tell you, sure, but hang on a second. I can tell you that there are city councils that I've worked with who have done that, and it's exhilarating. Exhilarating. Anyway.
This is good. Because before Joe became our parliamentarian, sorry I'm so loud, turn me down. Before Joe became our parliamentarian in Maricopa County, we had one of these situations where there was, he mentioned the word tyrannical, and that's what it was. This guy says, I'm in power, I don't have to listen to you, and you're just going to have to accept that. This is what we dealt with here in Maricopa County. So what happened is this. One of our people, and I know this, he's one of my friends, he actually went to a registered parliamentarian, because we didn't have one, and he said, he described the problem, and he hired her to actually come in and look at everything. And she says, I cannot rule in your meetings because I'm not elected, but I'm going to give you step by step what you need to do to take this guy out. And within 3 meetings, he was gone. So that's what you do.
There we go. She had her hand raised, and then we'll pop over here.
So, hi, Joe.
Hi.
In our union, oh yes, I'm sorry, our union does not include new business in its what do you call that? The agenda.
Yeah.
So, what steps do we need to take to force them to include new business into the agenda? Because what happens is, when they leave it out of the agenda, then when it's within the agenda, it requires 2/3 vote in order to close the meeting. But outside of the agenda, they can close the meeting with a majority vote, which is 50% plus 1.
So you're talking about a union here, and that's a whole different can of worms. And I'm familiar with the problem that you have, and I can tell you that that is going to be a situation where it's going to take an election to get rid of the current leadership. There's no possible, the way they're conducting their meetings, they're online, they're on Zoom, they mute people who have objections, and they've hired a professional parliamentarian who's backing them up on all this. It's really a hopeless case until you guys can elect different leadership. There's really, Robert's rules is not police power. All we can do is, we have rules to follow, and all we can do is point out when people don't follow the rules and hold that against them.
Right.
So.
And like we were mentioning earlier, and when it all comes down to it, it just goes back into and you had a question too, I know. It just goes into the importance of, really recruitment and getting, so like in Michigan, for example, it's precinct delegates, right? It's a matter of going out there and doing the hard work that other people aren't willing to do to be able to recruit and get other individuals to your meetings. So that way, you're not dealing with those issues with the chair, and that's going to be the most important thing, is you guys doing that and putting in that work. So that way you don't have to deal with this, but that's why, we want to be able to just let you know that Robert's Rules is very important. Hound in on that. Make sure that you guys are, well versed in it enough to get through a meeting and stuff. Once you have a good, Patriot board, or you have a good county GOP board. You had a question? Microphone?
Probably him too.
Yeah, there you go.
So this would address a women's Republican club where we've really not used Robert's Rules. And it was my first year on the board, and I'd always used Robert's Rules in my other boards I've sat on. So herein lies the dilemma. In our bylaws, it talks about you can have meetings digitally that become part of the permanent record. And I'm all about, at the end of the day, it's what's in writing. It has to be accurate. And if you approve it, then you've approved it, and that's the accuracy of it. So at the end of the day, if the president is going back and forth, you've got everybody on the email covered. You don't really have ever used Robert's Rules in your executive board. Do the emails going back and forth, your digital correspondence, become part of the permanent minutes?
Roberts doesn't address much outside of meetings. It talks about bylaws, it talks about standing rules, special rules of order, things like that. But the conduct outside of a meeting, it would seem to me that that would fall under the category of, if one of the officers does something untoward, if they're suppressing information or changing information or doing something with those emails that isn't quite right, You can censure them for doing something that's not right. But there's nothing in Robert's Rules of Order that dictates how emails would be handled between officers. If you want it to be handled, you can create what's called a special rule of order or add to your bylaws some rule as to how emails will be handled regarding the minutes. Sure.
One second, microphone.
So our bylaws do address digital correspondence as being recognized as a meeting. So this is a continuation of a board meeting of which questions were not adequately addressed and answered. Still not since April. So without calling the meeting to order, there is an email chain in writing with specific questions that still haven't been answered. So really where I'm going is our bylaws do provide for digital correspondence being acceptable as a meeting. Since we're so loose on Roberts, and that wasn't called a meeting, but it was a continuation of a conversation, would those emails then become part of old business or new business? Can we somehow make those emails part of the permanent record?
So that's, I'm going to have to, let's talk offline after the meeting, because that's a
Okay.
really, really specific question.
Yeah.
I will say that Robert's Rules of Order actually prohibits email conversations from being considered a meeting. Robert's Rules of Order requires what's called simultaneous oral communication. Everybody needs to be able to see and hear each other at the same time to actually constitute a meeting. And those don't fall into that category. So it'll be a special thing depending on what your bylaws
Yeah,
say.
we'll
And I'll
talk.
be happy to take a look at them.
Thank
Perfect.
you. Sorry, bylaws.
I will say thank you guys so much for coming in here. I will just reiterate just the importance of you guys going out there, putting in that hard work, and then leaning in on Turning Point Action. And we're connected to great individuals like our grassroots leader of the session here, helping us out with some answers. So thank you guys very much. Come down to our Turning Point Action booth, and if you need anything further, maybe is it Joe? Was it? Yes, maybe Joe can hang out outside here and answer some more of your specific questions. So appreciate you guys, and yeah, God bless.